Uncle Sam's safe deposit box, home to all of America's gold, but the top country may not be busting at the seams these days. After this break, where the questions are about how much is actually in there, and is some of it not where it should be.
He's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch, such a cold finger.
The man with a finger in every pie. His goal, Fort Knox, the world's biggest bank. His enemy, 007, the world's wiliest, toughest gentleman agent with a license to kill.
What a movie. I could watch that for the rest of, the day. Sean Connery there doing his best work as James Bond in the 1964 movie Goldfinger. The British spy was trying to stop the arch criminal from robbing Fort Knox of hundreds of tons of gold. In the movie, the gold, of course, because it's under James Bond's care, was saved. But in real life, there are some questions now about how much gold really lies behind those thick granite walls. The gold reserves stored at the Kentucky Army base have not been audited, though, counted, figured out how much is there, for nearly 50 years. Doesn't that seem strange? Many people, including my next guest, are calling for that to change. He's Chris Powell. He is from an organization called the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, and I think he's having trouble hearing us. Is his audio okay? Chris Powell, can you hear me okay? All right, we're standing by. Let me just tell you while they're double checking that one of the issues here is that there hasn't been an independent audit since the Eisenhower era. The U.S. Treasury says, well, we keep track of how much gold is there, but what is wanted from Chris Powell, who we're working on the audio for, and others, is an independent audit, somebody from the outside to go in and count it, because there's some speculation that it gets traded around from country to country based on the dollar and the levels of gold and the level of the currency internationally. So that is of great concern to these folks. And wouldn't you love to just get behind those doors, Bill?
Forget that.
I mean, it is. And what else is in there?
What is it, $1,000 an ounce these days?
It's about $1,000 an ounce. I think that sounds about right. And behind these walls, which are protected by a huge amounts of military, choppers flying overhead, the security is the most intense you will see anywhere in the nation. And now my guest Chris Powell is good, so we can bring him in and talk about this a little bit. Chris, what is your concern about counting this gold, and where do you think some of it might be going?
Martha, we believe that the United States has been swapping gold with the other Western central banks since January 1995, because that's what is reported in the Federal Reserve Board minutes from January 1995. The purpose is to rig the currency and gold markets and to deceive the markets about the strength of the U.S. dollar.
And why should we not believe that the U.S. Treasury has the best interests of our gold stocks at hand, and that they're handling this in a responsible way?
Well, apart from there having been no on-site audit since the 1950s, the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve Board are refusing access to documents about the U.S. gold reserve, even as there are other documents that have fallen into the public domain, suggesting that the gold has been mobilized surreptitiously to rig the markets. We think the more important question may be not so much whether there is gold in Fort Knox, but to whom it really belongs.
Yeah. It's a fascinating question, and you're suggesting that some of the gold, are you saying that it's physically been taken out of there, or that it is the ownership of it has changed hands?
Well, as to the physical location, Martha, we don't really know, and the United States public is not being permitted to know. But apart from that, since we do know from the Federal Reserve Board meeting minutes of January 1995, we do know that the United States government has been swapping gold with other central banks, and the only purpose of gold swaps is to rig markets. I think it's very probable that the United States does not have all the gold that it claims to have.
And how much gold, I read different ranges in terms of how much the gold in there is worth, and of course the price of gold fluctuates all the time. But one of these estimates says $30 to $40 billion worth, and the other estimate says $137 billion worth of gold bars may be in Fort Knox.
Well, the problem is, Martha, we really don't know what it's worth, because the United States government has been intervening surreptitiously in the gold market to suppress the price, gold being a competitive currency and a determinant interest rates and the value of government bonds. If we had a free market in gold, gold undoubtedly would be worth many thousands of dollars more than it is right now.
At the high end of that estimate, $137 billion, is still a heck of a lot less than we gave AIG. Interesting to think about.
Oh yes, so much money is being conjured into existence. The value of real gold is a lot higher than people think it is.
Chris Powell, interesting story. Thank you very much for making us aware of it. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Always comes back to AIG these days, doesn't it?
That $137 billion in Fort Knox insurance. 170.
Yeah, that's a great point.
On AIG.
I mean, we can't even fathom the amount of money that we've been spending over the past 4 months. Great point. Okay, there's a chilling new warning from the Taliban directed at